As you probably know, I worked in-house as an event planner for most of my career. I spent almost 15 years working at mostly software companies, a little bit of financial services. So I understand the world of working as an internal event planner. And now that I'm working externally, I really want to support internal planners because I know how demanding the job can be. I know that, you're constantly problem solving and managing expectations when it comes to your events. And when I worked in house, we didn't often have times or resources to bring in external help, even though we probably needed it. And a couple of times we did. There were a few programs that I've worked on that we did actually bring in external planners, and it really benefited us. So today I want to talk about some reasons to bring in an external planner, even when you've got a great internal team, because this is not about what your team can't do. It's about being realistic and setting them up for success and knowing when you need to call in some extra resources. So, firstly, it really allows your team to be present. So, raise your hand if you have ever planned an award ceremony and you were one of the award winners. So, obviously, that's not great because if you're, meant to be recognized, or maybe you're working on like an internal event that requires you to participate in sessions, but also requires you to be a planner, you're being torn in too many places. And if you're the award winner and you're planning your own event, it's like planning your own surprise party, right? Like you want to be able to take the opportunity to really appreciate and feel recognized instead of having to check in on the caterers or like I said, if you're doing an internal event, maybe it's a retreat or a kickoff, and you're trying to learn from your executives and from your peers and connect with them, but you're also having to go make sure that the AV is set up and that the after party is ready to go. When you aren't able to focus on your event and actually learn from it, you're not getting the same opportunity as your colleagues, right? And so you want to make sure that if you are responsible for planning the event, if it's an internal event, that it's not something that you need to actually be paying attention to the content and the sessions and that you can focus on your role. So I think that that's a huge one because I've been to so many events that I've planned internally where I then go to meetings a couple weeks later and people are like, well, that was talked about at kickoff or that was talked about at QBR. And it's like, yeah, no, sorry. I was dealing with a catering issue or, calling to find out where our deliveries were. And it just means that I'm not getting the same experience as the other attendees. So maybe it's not that you need to bring in an external planner for the entire planning process, but having someone that can focus on making sure, the checklist is taken care of, making sure that the run of show is running smoothly while you're allowed to focus on what you're actually meant to be focused on. And of course, bringing in another planner can bring in a new perspective. So maybe you have been struggling with a program that needs a little bit of life breathed into it, right? We've all been there where, it's been the same program for many years and unfortunately your calls to change it are kind of falling on deaf ears. But if you're bringing in outside perspective, they can help you craft that message and support, with industry trends and an outside voice that can help you kind of win those battles of, okay, we need to change things because this isn't, you know, 2010, 2015, 2019, even 2021, right? Like so much has changed and keeps changing. And so that outside perspective can also, help reinforce the messages that you may be trying to give to your stakeholders. And it also just allows you to flex a little bit more creatively, give you another person who understands events to bounce ideas off of and say like, "Hey, do you think this could work? Or is this the craziest thing I've ever thought of?" And sometimes the answer to that question, both those questions is yes. And there's this simplicity of needing to expand your footprint. So I know that one time that I was able to actually bring in external planners to support an event, it was our biggest event of the year. There were other events that happened, of course, right before and right after. And we just could not manage it all or manage it all, to the level of hospitality and service that we expected for our events, for our attendees and our internal stakeholders. And so, the event was a 4-day conference that we were like one of the biggest sponsors of. And we, as a team, internally managed, I'd say 80% of it. And then 20% of it we gave to an external agency to manage. And they kind of came up with the concepts, they executed from beginning to end. And we just really told them, like, here's the budget, here's the vision, this is what we need you to do. And they could execute that in a way that means that we weren't, trying to do too many things and stretching ourselves too thin, because we know what happens when you do that, right? You're automatically like, you're making it harder for yourself and you're only doing the bare minimum because you're like, I just need to get something out there. And it might not be exactly what you want it to be because you were too pulled in different directions. And it might not be that you need to have someone from the beginning to the end. It might just be, again, bringing in someone on the day of, night of, week of, to help expand your footprint, to say like, okay, I can't physically be setting up breakout rooms and our main stage and our offsites. So maybe you're bringing in someone who can manage those offsites and make sure that's running smoothly, or can really just expand your team when you need to flex a little bit and don't necessarily need to hire someone full time. And I think the biggest thing is reducing burnout. Like, we talk about it so often that events is one of the most stressful jobs. Year after year, the surveys prove us right. We know it. We live it every day. We live the constant messages and the panicked phone calls and the, okay, we need to change. Oh, okay, we're not getting what we expected. And reducing burnout is huge, because we also know that events come in seasons, and there's definitely a conference season. And if you are not building in time for your team to rest, even in those busy periods, they're just going to completely burn out. And so bringing in an external planner, again, can help take some of the mental load off of them, some of the physical load off of them, and make sure that it's balanced when you need it. And again, it might be that you bring someone in those peak times because you don't need another full-timer the rest of the year, because everything else is pretty balanced. So making sure that you're expecting what's reasonable from your teams, and knowing, you know, it's a challenge in our industry because we're so good at staying calm under pressure and not showing our emotions and not showing our stress, because we know when we're on site, we don't want to be stressing attendees out, stakeholders out. Like, we need to be the calm ones, but that can work against us because sometimes we people think that we're doing well when we're really struggling because we haven't been given that opportunity to take a break or to rest. And people just, they know that we get things done. And so they just keep expecting us to get things done. So those are 4 reasons that you should consider bringing in an external planner when you're working on your programs, and getting that in the budget early. Like I said, it can be, maybe they take on a complete portion of an event or a complete event to help your team balance, or they come in on site to help support and balance your resources so that you don't have your team members burning the candle at both ends, especially when they're on site. So would love to know if you've worked with external planners, how has that gone for you? And let me know in the comments.